Good morning, everybody. My name's Steve Morse. Welcome to this morning's seminar. Thanks for coming along. I came into the Google organization via the Looker acquisition back in March. Before we go into the agenda for today's session, it's probably worth me explaining a little bit more about what Looker is to set some context for what you're about to hear. So just to refresh everyone's memory, Looker provides a data platform which provides in itself data experiences for organizations across the world. So what we're really all about is helping large organizations, especially those in retail, derive more meaningful information from the data they have to hand. There are lots and lots of organizations already doing this, clearly. And interestingly, more than half of our customers are actually using Looker to provide data experiences. And we'll talk a little bit more about what a data experience is in just a second. And the other thing to bear in mind is, despite us being a Google company, Looker is very much multi-cloud and it's very much multi-database. So we connect up to many different types of SQL databases, as you'll see in just a second. Just to explain a little bit more about what Looker does, again, really to add some context to what you're about to hear from our guest speakers. As I said, we provide a data platform, and that data platform is really a layer that sits between all of the data that big retailers are collecting in a very rapid fashion. But more than that, it's providing a consistent set of answers out to users within the organizations. But we do this in slightly different ways. So our customers use Looker in many different manners. So there's the traditional manner, such as Sunrun, who build and provide solar panels, and they use Looker in a more traditional manner, whereby they provide dashboards about their customers to all of their employees off a centralized data source. And that's pretty much what core BI is all about. And that's clearly something that Looker excels at. But beyond that, Looker also provides, when we talk about these data experiences, the ability to provide answers to everyday business questions, very much in line with the business systems that people are using. So for example, Stripe is another customer of ours, and in fact, we do this ourselves internally, embed Looker content within another application, in this case, Salesforce. So a lot of content that Looker is generating often exists within some other web page, in this case, Salesforce. It could be some other SaaS application. It could be some other web portal. So beyond that, we have customers who take it even further. And instead of people having to go into Looker to find answers to their questions, Looker very much coexists in the business systems they use. So we just mentioned things like Salesforce and other SaaS applications. Wouldn't it be nice, as Salesloft do, to have something like Looker proactively notify people when something is about to happen in their business on which they want to take action? So rather than having to go and look for those answers, Salesloft have used Looker to build an alerting system so that their agents are notified via email in this case, but it could be messaging systems, that something is about to happen and they want to take action to either increase profitability or decrease customer churn without having to go and look for the answers themselves. And the final example of how our customers have used Looker is very much to deeply embed it within applications that they've built themselves. So because all of the Looker APIs are open, we have large retailers who have built custom apps that have Looker deeply embedded within scripts that their data scientists may have used or created previously. So going from left to right here, we go from the sort of more traditional understanding of what BI and analytics is all about, right through to highly custom solutions. And that's the sort of data platform that Looker provides on top of a consistent layer that ensures consistent answers out to many, many hundreds of users. So that, in a nutshell, is what Looker is all about. That's underpinning everything that you're about to hear. But you don't really want to hear too much from me. So let's get on to who our speakers are going to be. So the first speaker is going to be my colleague, Cab. Cab's been a customer engineer at Looker for over 3 years, lots and lots of detailed experience of how to implement Looker with retail customers. So he'll be talking about the trends that he's been seeing. And then we have really what everyone I think is really interested in, the customer perspective. So we're going to hear from both Ben and Brad from two Looker organizations who have deployed Looker in different ways and seen how Looker can really add meaningful value to what their organizations are doing. by extracting useful detail from the data that they have. We have time allocated at the end for questions. You probably have noticed that there's a Q&A panel on each of your screens. I would urge you to submit your questions into that panel, and we'll be gathering them as we go along, and we'll be answering them towards the end. So that's what we're going to be doing. That's it for me for the moment. I'm going to hand over to Cab.
Thank you, Steve. Hi, everyone. I'm Cab Gaspard, a customer engineer at Looker, now Google Cloud, specializing in retail. At Google Cloud, we work with many retailers, especially at Looker, as you can imagine. And from that, we're really able to observe the main retail right now, and the general literature seems to be observing the same things. So we've picked out a few trends that we're briefly going to discuss today before handing over to our customer speakers. So the trends really that we picked up over the past year are the increased use of artificial intelligence in retail analytics. Now, it's no secret that AI is becoming increasingly present in retail, but as the AI algorithms and technology is evolving, the amount of AI that's used in retail analytics is more present than ever. Hyper-personalization of the offering. Retailers and e-commerce shops have been personalizing their offering for the past 20 plus years, but really with the massive amounts of data we're getting now, not just of our customers, but also from third-party sources, we're able more than ever to have a 360-degree view of our customers and really have as tailored an offering as possible. The stakes are higher than ever for this in a post-COVID world where we don't have as many opportunities to engage a customer, let's say, in store. Retail as a platform, this is a very interesting trend that's really started emerging over the past 3 years. Retailers increasingly becoming B2B businesses in addition to B2C businesses. As a retailer or even as an e-commerce store, your product isn't just the physical inventory you're selling. It's also the wealth of information and data that you have on those products that as a retailer, you can sell back to your suppliers, to your partners as a valuable source of information, but also monetization for you. And then finally, data-driven supply chain optimization. Once again, nothing new per se about supply chain optimization, but as we're entering an IoT world, a world where all of our stock is much more closely tracked in real time, data-driven supply chain optimization is really surging full speed ahead within the world of retail. At the same time, this transformation is met with challenges. So, for example, we talked about understanding and reaching the right customers, so hyper-personalization. But this means that given all the different data sources that we need to really personalize or offer to a customer, we're getting data from all over the place. So it's as important as ever to get a 360-degree view of the customer within days, not months. And when we get a new source of data, we should be able to very quickly integrate it within the 360-degree view of our customer. Optimizing store and marketplace operations. So once again, we talked about AI in retail. Add that to the fact that stores are more data hungry than ever. Right? At a retailer, it's not enough to just have data and analytics in the head office. Staff on the shop floor need analytics more than ever. So our data needs to be readily available, not just to the AI and ML engineers, but also to staff on the shop floor. And then finally, managing complex supply chains. So we talked about data-driven supply chain optimization and how in a real-time world where inventory is more and more tracked with QR, IoT, every hour or even every minute instead of every day or every week, then being able to very quickly react to news and have an hour-by-hour blow or even faster than daily of our supply chain is more important than ever. So forget about building extracts. All analytics has to be in real time. And these really are the general challenges that retailers are facing as the retail world evolves that permeate to the analytical level. Now, at Looker, we help our retailers address many of these challenges. And we're lucky now to be part of Google Cloud, who also has a very, very strong mission to help retailers, not just in analytics, but in their whole digital infrastructure challenges. So I'm not going to go through all these examples, but I think a couple of examples that are very interesting, in addition to the ones that you'll hear live today, of how retailers are using a Google Cloud and sometimes Google Cloud plus Looker stack to address these challenges. So if we take, for example, Ocado and what they're doing in predictions with AI, when you think of AI in retail, you might think about demand forecasting or better predicting customer behaviors, but actually an increasing problem in retail is fraud. The cost of fraud to retailers has increased fourfold in the past 3 years, and now accounts for on average 2% of a retailer's revenue, which is actually very, very big. So what Ocado are using Google Cloud's AI practices for is to better detect fraudulent transactions and distinguish transactions where a customer ordered a delivery and didn't pay on purpose versus transactions that were just honest mistakes and missed payments. Another example is Finish Line, which is, I guess, America's equivalent of JD Sports here in the UK, where they're using a Google Cloud plus Looker stack to get an hour-by-hour play of how their various deliveries and in-store click and collect orders are performing. Now, we have all of these exciting applications, but at the end of the day, how the end result gets to the user is really crucial. So if we think of all the different things that are happening in retailers' digital stack, for example, gathering customer insights from many different sources like Facebook ads, Google ads, DoubleClick, Instagram, so on, improving product recommendations with various AI algorithms, loyalty app delivery, and so on. There's all this, all these algorithms and all this digital infrastructure happening in the background. But at the end of the day, our merchandiser doesn't care about that. They just want to make sure that they can upsell every pair of trousers with a belt. Our customer relationship manager doesn't really care about the different data sources. They just want to know their return on advertising spend over the past week. So Looker is in this retail stack, and this can be in a GCP world, but once again, Looker is cloud agnostic. So you can imagine that this whole stack at the top of the slide is an AWS stack or a Snowflake stack or an Azure stack. Looker is the vehicle to deliver these insights to the end user within the retailer, whether it's someone on the shop floor or someone in the head office. And not everyone wants to see a dashboard. If I'm, for example, someone working on a shop floor, I don't want to log into yet another app called Looker and see a dashboard. I want to, in my operational app that's on my phone, directly see which products are understocked and I have to go get from the back of the store. This is exactly the advantage of Looker not being just a visualization tool, but a full data platform, insofar as it can deliver insights in an embedded way in various different applications, just as it can deliver responsive dashboards, which is exactly what Steve was talking about. And there's a great example of this, where Looker is the delivery mechanism of the data rather than just a dashboarding tool. So we have a great case with Marks and Spencer, who actually, not on a Google stack, but on an Azure stack, built a call center AI model. So Marks and Spencer, very large UK retailer, they are a very digitally advanced business, but a lot of their customers are not. So Marks and Spencer gets about 13 million customer phone calls every year. And most of them are simple questions that one could have easily searched online, such as, what time does your store close? Or do you have this product in stock? And so on. So Marks and Spencer built a call center AI algorithm that can detect the intent of a customer. And if it's a basic question like, what time does your store close? Answer them with an automated audio response system. Or if it's a slightly more complex question, route them to the right specialist rather than using a touch tone response system, which can alienate customers. And this was working fairly well in the beginning, but there were quite a few incoming calls that were poorly routed. Someone, for instance, would be calling to ask if a certain product is in stock, and then they'd be routed to a different store or something like that. No AI algorithm is perfect. So it was important for their AI and ML engineers to be able to very quickly observe how their algorithm was performing in an intuitive way, not just by debugging code in the console, but also be alerted when a certain number of calls were being misinterpreted by the AI and misrouted. And that's exactly what they used Looker for. So they didn't necessarily use it as a dashboarding system, but as an alerting system that they placed on top of their AI that alerted the machine learning team at Marks and Spencer when the accuracy of their model was performing poorly and when calls were being routed incorrectly. And the result of that was a 70% increase in call routing accuracy and a 95% increase in customer engagement rate. So another great example of how retailers are using analytics, not just for traditional means, but also as a supplement to more advanced digital stacks that they're building. And as Looker continues to integrate with Google Cloud, we're delivering particular innovation in terms of retail solutions. So for example, one solution that we're excited to give a sneak peek about soon is our retail demand forecasting solution, where Looker is integrated with proprietary Google AI algorithms and Google third-party data and ads data to deliver to retailers what products they should anticipate will be most in demand based on these various different data sources. So lots of exciting things coming on the technical and product offering front from the Looker and Google Cloud integration. And I'll now hand over to our next speaker, Ben Powis from M&M Direct.
Thanks, Kat. Before we hand over to Ben, if I can just remind everybody, there is the Q&A panel on your screen. Please keep those questions coming. I can see we've got a few already. That'd be great. Next up is Ben from M&M Direct.
Thanks, Steve, and hi, everybody. So, hi, I'm Ben. I head up the data science team at M&M Direct, and it's great to join you today to share the story of our wider data journey and our journey into Looker, really, and our goal to get smarter decisions with a tool like Looker and to enable the business to be more data-driven. Before I start that, for those of you who aren't familiar with M&M, here's a little bit about us. So, M&M have been trading for over 30 years. Actually, in the last couple of weeks, we passed the milestone of 3 million active customers. So really kind of big, exciting milestone for the business that we're really excited to be able to share. We have a core business in the UK, but we also operate localized websites throughout Europe. So we have 7 localized websites, kind of translated websites in markets like France and Germany, but we do ship all over Europe as well. To give you an idea of the scale of the site, so mnmdirect.com alone receives over 100 million visits a year. We sell over 300 brands in any given year, so in any given time. So we sell some of the biggest brands in kind of clothing and footwear in the world. Yeah, in a given year, we'll send over 400 million emails to our customers. And we have over 600 million pages of product viewed on mnmdirect.com alone every year. Our history has been as a catalog retailer. So in our most of our 30 years of trading have been catalog based. The business started with catalogs, and for many years that was how our customers would buy from us. The catalog was our shop window, essentially. So we would mail out catalogs to our customers. They would phone us up to order the products, and we'd ship them out that way. Around about 5 years ago, we decided to shift the focus of our marketing and move away from catalogs and move entirely digital. So 5 years ago, we sent our last catalog and we reinvested that money into digital acquisition of customers and digital marketing. In terms of our data journey, the great thing about that from a data and data science perspective is that it means that as a purely online retailer now, we get some data on every interaction that our customers make with us, whether that's a visit to the website to look at a few products, whether that's reading an email or engaging with a piece of content, or of course making a purchase and looking at what our customers buy. So it means that as a data science team and as a data-driven organization, we have a really rich pool of data that we can mine for insight, and we can look for stories that our customers are telling us about how they like to shop with M&M and what they want to buy. Around about that time, so again, looking back about 5 years, our data looked like this, which is a picture I'm sure will be familiar to many of you. When we talk about siloed data, this was very much how things were within our organization. So we had, for example, Google Analytics data in one place, or Web Analytics data in one place, our ads data in another, our email CRM database and email data in another place, our warehouse stock data in terms of what we actually had for sale in another place. And we had different teams working with all these silos of data producing their own reports and their own insight. They were all experts in their particular pieces of data, but there was no way to join it all up. Around about this time, we took a look at the way things were working, and we thought, is there a better way to do this? How can we build on this for the future? So in terms of reporting, what it meant for us is just to kind of illustrate that in a way. We had analysts working with different silos of data, producing reports that were typically in kind of Excel, Google Sheets, very static back then. And we had situations where two people might be asked the same question, and they could answer it in different ways by going and getting different data sets from various siloed data sets, putting them together, and the same question could yield different answers, which is obviously not ideal when you're looking for definitive answers to business questions when you want to make a decision. So we looked at this and we decided to bring all of our data together into one place, to break down these silos and to bring everything into one rich pool of data, which we could then open up across the business so that we got rid of this duplication and reuse of data and just streamline things. The database we chose was Google BigQuery. We chose that because we were big Google Analytics users, so it was a logical step. The first thing we did was bring our Google Analytics data into BigQuery. There's a one-click integration for that, so it was a really nice process to start us on that journey. Then once we had that data there, it was a logical step for us to continue to add everything else into that. So this is where we are today, where we have all of our data pooled in BigQuery, and we're able to join up our customer interactions, and it gives us this kind of richer view than we've ever had before of all of our customer interactions across all the different touch points of M&M. Our data team, so we have a small data team that works across the business at M&M. So as a data science team, we work with all kinds of different departments. We manage the Looker environment, and as new data becomes available, so we brought a lot of data into BigQuery at the moment, but it's still ongoing. Still, if we see new opportunities to bring in new data, or we work with new partners to bring in new information where we feel that there's value, we will then work with teams across the business to bring more data into Looker. And we're always looking for new ways to drive added value and provide extra insight onto the data that we have. So to take a step back, I suppose we got to that stage where we had all of our data in BigQuery. And I think we all talk about big data and the value in big data and saying we should collect all this data. It wouldn't be great if we had this. And then when you get it, you realize, okay, now you have all this data, then what you do to get value from it, how do you activate it, how do you actually use it? It's almost like collecting and the data is only half the battle. Then the next challenge is how to use it. So we got to that stage, we got a lot of data together into BigQuery, and we thought, okay, what now? We were working with tools like Excel in the past. Clearly, they weren't the right tools for the job anymore when the scale of the data was so much bigger than it had ever been before. So we went out to market. This is our problem. What tools out there are there that can help us activate this data and really take our insight to the next level? And we were really interested in opening up data across the business. We didn't want it to be only accessible by a small data science team. We wanted anyone in the business to be able to engage with this warehouse data and get value from it. So we wanted a platform that could automate reporting processes. So again, if we look back 4 or 5 years, a lot of what we did was manual. So we looked for opportunities to automate and speed things up so that people could be spending their time doing valuable work rather than lifting and shifting data around. We wanted to enable a kind of self-service environment. So we wanted people to be able to, if they needed data to make a quick decision, to have access to that and to feel that they could go in and run their own queries and ask their own questions of the data. There might still be teams where they need to then pose a question to an analytics team or then have a deeper dive. We wanted people to have the confidence and the ability to be able to just go in and explore data, not for it to be kind of locked down in a secret department that nobody could get to. We wanted a way to do all this securely and manage access. So although we want to open data up, we want to do that in a way that wasn't overwhelming to people. And to Cab's point earlier, not everybody in the business needs to see everything. People want to see the information that is most relevant to their jobs and what they do, and the data that enables them to make those decisions quicker. And we wanted a platform that would grow with our needs. So a platform that was kind of aligned to where we wanted to go as an organization, and to say, okay, where we are today isn't where we're going to be a few years from now. So something that could grow and to scale. And then also key for us was a platform that could help us get around that problem of siloed data and people being able to answer the same question and come back with different answers. So to go on to a key kind of driver in Looker as a tool for us was the semantic layer, the kind of data dictionary layer, which I've tried to illustrate here. So again, this was really key in our decision, and this was something that we really pushed the adoption of Looker across the business. So we have, if you imagine, you bring all your silo data together and you have many measures and many different definitions, and you haven't cleaned them up, you just brought them all together. That's part of the battle, but then the next step is to clean them up. So we want our business users to be able to come in and build a Looker report and click, for example, revenue, and for that to be a business-defined definition of revenue, not to be able to take perhaps a different one from many of the different data sources that we pull together. So the Looker kind of dictionary layer, the semantic layer, was a really key driver in us being able to say, okay, we can bring in Looker and we can give access to the business to all of the data, but then we as a small data science team can provide a clean kind of data dictionary, a definition of all these terms in between the raw data and the end business user interface, so that anyone can build reports, but they're doing so in a way that means they're using fields and definitions that have been defined by the business. So that's what we've done. So how has Looker changed data at M&M? So it's given us that self-service platform that we wanted, where users have got access to the freshest data. And this was, again, a really important thing, where in an old kind of data siloed environment, when you're manually having to go and extract data from databases and refresh reports, if somebody in the business says, hey, that report you did for me last week, can I have a look at that data again today? Then sure, somebody has to go and grab that data manually and redo that process. What Looker gives us is an environment where Looker is sitting on top of all of our data, and if we build a report for somebody in the business and then they want to see that report with the freshest data, they literally just click a button and refresh that data and use Looker to leverage that. Looker pushes our insights beyond just dashboards as well, which was important for us as a team in a business. Dashboards are great, but we wanted people, sometimes people just need to run a query or just ask a question, and it doesn't always need a dashboard. So the Explore interface in Looker has been great for us in kind of encouraging our more data advanced colleagues in the business to drill down into dashboards, to explore further, and to really drill down into why a particular metric in a dashboard might be spiking. And the key thing, of course, is that everyone in the business is now working from a shared data resource. And the great thing about that is they benefit from each other's work. So we're joining up these data silos, and then we're making data available to people where it wasn't before. So as an example, our merchandising team get great valuable insight from our web analytics. And in the past, they would have been working on a merchandising kind of product sales silo, and they would be able to say, okay, we sold 1,000 of these pair of trainers last week. In joining up web analytics to that, we can paint a much better story about, okay, where did we sell those 1,000 trainers to, which customers bought them? Was it new customers? Were they returning customers? Were they customers that engaged with paid advertising, or were they customers that clicked through on a Facebook ad? And then all of these things are then valuable insights that our merchandising team can then go on to use. And as I mentioned it again with our data layer, with the dictionary layer, so it enables our team to stay as a small team, but continue to manage the Looker experience and the definitions across the whole business. Okay, I've got a couple of use cases for things that we've done. So I mentioned already, but I think breaking down silos, although not technically a project, I think it's one of the best things that Looker has done for us, and it has enabled us to bring together all this data. And as I said earlier, just enable those teams to have access to data that they wouldn't have been able to do before. And it makes things much more organic. So when you're able to go into an Explore environment in Looker, you're really on a journey. You're not just looking at a static dashboard. It's about, okay, here's a thing I'm interested in. And then you can follow that through to additional insight. And then finally, one of the more recent things we've been working with in Looker are ML predictions. So we run Looker on top of Google BigQuery, as I mentioned, and as a team, we use a lot of the tools in the wider kind of Google Cloud Platform suite. And part of that is machine learning. And one of the challenges with that is that we might go away and build a model to predict customer acquisition. Then the challenge can be sometimes getting the results of that model out to the end business. So that can be quite a complicated process. You can end up writing your results back to BigQuery. But then the challenge is, you want your business to interface with these results and to use these models and to use that data. How do you do that? So Looker has enabled us to kind of do complex projects and really run quite complex models and processes in the wider Google Cloud Platform environment, be able to serve those results up to the business. And to the business user, they're just looking at it's just another dashboard, just another insight that they can use to make decisions. But for us, it's really great to have that way to channel kind of some of the more advanced work we do, but still make it as digestible as every other piece of insight at M&M. So that about brings us up to date to where we are on our journey now. I think we're by no means finished. I think it's really exciting to be part of a product that is moving and developing all the time, and I think we're really excited to see where we are a year from now with Looker. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Very informative. Before we hand over to our next speaker, if I can just remind everybody once more, keep your questions coming. We'll be answering as many as we can at the end of this session. Those that we can't get round to, we'll answer offline separately. So keep those coming. And our final presenter is Brad. Brad from Superdry. Brad's the BI manager there. And I don't want to steal his thunder, but he's going to talk about how Superdry have gone from the data dark ages, I should say, to data enlightenment. All very interesting. Over to you, Brad.
Thanks, Steve. Hi, everybody. It's Brad here. I am the BI manager at Superdry. And today I am going to talk a bit about our journey with Looker, where we are, where we've been, and where we're going. So just to give a brief overview of what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where we were before Looker with data, a time I've termed the data dark ages, which may be being a little bit harsh, but I'll go on to that. I'm going to talk a bit about why we chose Looker and how we brought Looker into the business, and then how we're using Looker at Superdry, and give some specific examples of how data is changing the business and specific use cases for various areas of the business and how they're using Looker. So before we get into that, just to talk a little bit about Superdry as a business. So we're a global fashion brand. We've got over 240 owned stores and 470 franchise stores across 61 different countries. So we're fairly global. And we've also got an e-commerce offering that spans 21 of our own e-commerce sites across various geographies. And then also we sell through a further 24 partner online marketplaces as well. We are based in Cheltenham in the UK, but we also have offices around the globe that deal with things like our wholesale operations and also our sourcing of our product. So moving on to Superdry Looker. So before the implementation of Looker at Superdry, which was a while ago now, we're talking about 3.5 years, there was kind of a similar theme to a lot of what Ben spoke about with M&M. There was no real consistent or centralized reporting. There was a lot of siloed reporting, data activity, and there's also a lot of manual, time-consuming legacy processes. And the upshot of all of that was that there was very little trust in a lot of the numbers, and we really didn't have a massive handle on a lot of where the key metrics that would tell us where we were as a business, because people were churning numbers manually through Excel and shifting data and kind of doing a lot of manual engineering themselves. People frequently came up with different numbers for the same thing. Again, as Ben touched upon, we had a lot of occurrences of people being asked to go and look at a certain area and coming back with completely different findings based on the data they were doing, that a lot of which was down to a lack of centralized and clear reporting, and the fact that people were having to do a lot of the heavy lifting and a lot of the manipulation of the data themselves without really having the proper tools to do it. Excel was overused massively in the business. It's obviously a very useful tool, but when it comes to certain amounts of data complexity or certain amounts of data size, as I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, it's just not the right tool to use. And I think the result of all of that confusion was that we really were in the data dark ages, and we didn't have a clear picture in a lot of ways of where we were as a business and what we were doing. So 3.5 years ago, we chose to implement Looker alongside a cloud stack with an Amazon Redshift data warehouse and using Matillion ETL to kind of attempt to centralize that reporting and begin to give the business a lot more clarity. We chose Looker, again, as Ben touched upon, because we really wanted that strong self-service aspect. So we wanted the business users to be able to have the direct access into the data and to self-serve in a way that a lot of people were attempting to do before via Excel, but it just didn't really suit it. So that was still the approach we wanted. We just wanted to do it with a better, more consistent and more centralized tool set. We rolled Looker out across the business, department by department, over about 18 months. So it took a while, but over that time, we went from 0 to almost 500 users in Looker, and pretty much every department in the business at the end of that 18 months was on Looker and was using Looker. When we were onboarding, we really focused initially on replacing some of that legacy reporting that existed. So almost all of the areas of the business, as in most businesses nowadays, had really key reporting that they needed to do on a day-to-day basis. And we basically worked with those departments over that onboarding period to migrate the current reporting into Looker and to enable them to begin to work faster and to have better access to that reporting that they needed to do their jobs. At the same time, as we were onboarding, we were looking at ways that we could utilize the features of Looker as a tool to kind of make the business users' lives better. And I'll talk a bit about the specifics of that more later in the presentation. But initially, the focus was on replication of that legacy reporting. And what that then allowed us to do was to retire a lot of the legacy reporting systems that existed. And at the same time, we were able to align reporting. Something that existed a lot in the business was a lot of duplication of reporting, because a lot of reporting was done in a very siloed way with specific tools looking at only data from a specific system. We had lots of departments reporting the same thing. So reporting, say, what are our sales last week? What is the current stock holding for, this item or this category of item? And as I touched upon, a lot of the times those departments were coming up with different numbers, partly due to the processes and the lack of centralization that existed, but also there was not a lot of alignment in reporting. A lot of KPIs and metrics were being defined individually by departments, and the lack of a centralized tool like Looker really made that more confusing and meant that we didn't have visibility or traceability of what any of those numbers that were being produced were. And Looker was immediately a big step forward in that it allowed us to be able to say, okay, when I'm talking about sales or when I'm talking about stock, I'm talking about this data from this system, applying these rules and all of that kind of stuff. So it was a big step forward in that respect. So that was where we were before Looker and how we onboarded. Just to talk a bit about how we use Looker now at Superdry. Now we're in kind of more of the BAU kind of phase of operations. So like I said, we've got about 450 users across the business. Pretty much every department is using Looker in various degrees. And the way that we work with the business is we sit as part of a centralized team that supports and administers Looker, the cloud data warehouse in Redshift that sits underneath it, and all of our Matillion integrations that take data from the business systems, bring it into Redshift for use in Looker. So we kind of own that technical stack, and we work with the business to enable them to get the most out of the platform. So the way we do that is we have a network of users throughout the business in the various departments who, mostly through their job role, sit closer to the reporting aspects of what they do. So these are the people who have a good knowledge of the systems that they use around the business and the data that sits within those systems, and consequently understand a lot about the reporting that they need to do and what that tells them. And I think for me, that's really the power in Looker is, as a data person, I cannot have as deep an understanding of the operations of the business as the people who are, in the department doing the specific roles. I can understand merchandising as well as a merchandiser. I can understand logistics as well as somebody who works in logistics. But when you put together a person like me or the people in my team who understand that data, and the people within the business with the specific knowledge and the experience of the operations in their area, that's really where you can extract the power of a tool like Looker and harnessing the use of data. So that's how we try and work with the business, that we kind of combine the technical knowledge of this is how we can create this report, this is how we can make this data available, with what that data is really telling us about our business, and what it's telling us about our performance, and really informing the action that needs to come out of that. So we have this network of users across our business, which is about 25 of them in total. And these are the people that we're really dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So although we have the broader 450 odd users, and those people do get in touch with us, as a central team, we are really engaging with our key users and kind of understanding what's going on in their world, what the priorities are for their area of the business, and then how we can utilize the data and the tools we have and utilize Looker to best support them. Those network of users also form what we call a data community. So again, that's our key data users within Superdry, and getting those people together can be, again, incredibly valuable for the holistic alignment piece across the business, because they can then begin to talk, share knowledge, and begin to align what they're doing. Going back to what I was talking around the differing numbers due to a lack of alignment, one of the key things we found when we started talking to these super users from different areas and trying to get to the bottom of why we were getting different numbers for different metrics was as simple as the fact that we actually had different definitions, and different areas were counting sales or counting stock differently based on the dates that were being included, certain exclusions that may be being applied. And fundamentally, that was probably a lot of the reason why we were getting different numbers in the data dark ages. We just didn't understand that. We didn't have that traceability back then. So those key users have also been really key in kind of us being able to sit around with Looker as a tool and say, okay, when we're talking about sales last week, when we're talking about stock, when we're talking about, you know, our cost of sale, what data from what systems with what business rules do we need to apply to get that, and having that as a consistent metric across the business that then also allows us to reduce the duplication in that reporting, and ensure that where we have a key metric, it's being reported in one place and not by lots of different people needlessly. So that's kind of very much the division of labor really that we have. We own the technical aspects, and we work with the business to understand the reporting that they need, and the key challenges in their area and how data can support that. And the key thing there is that the departments very much own the reporting out of Looker. They own the dashboards, they own the looks, and we are there as a technical support, and ensuring that they're getting the most out of it, and that it's offering them the most value that it can. So just moving on to a few areas where data is changing the business, how we're moving towards that data-lightenment. So I just touched on the alignment in reporting. I'm not really going to go over that too much again, because I've kind of covered it, but it's a lot around how we can be more collaborative with our use of data and how we can share information across the business. So although, again, when we're talking about specific departments, people in merchandising will have a set of reports that they are more closely looking at. It can be very useful for them to see peripheral pieces of information that may be more relevant to other departments. So with merchandising, it may be specifically when we are expecting certain new items of stock into the warehouse, which is very relevant for us as we go into a new selling season with autumn winter 20. That can be a report that is primarily looked at by logistics, but again, it can be very useful and beneficial for the people in merchandising to see that, to inform what they're going to be working on and the things they're going to need to focus on in the near future. So that collaborative ability to share reports has really been a big boost. And the fact that we can all do that in a single platform is really where Looker's added a lot of value. And I suppose the other thing to talk about that alignment is that what it's really allowed us to do is focus on what the data is telling us, not on checking if the data is correct. So again, going back to where we were before, when people didn't trust the numbers, they would want to see a whole lot of detail. There would be massive Excel spreadsheets, and people would really want to be able to dive into the specifics before they would even trust what the data was telling them. And that's obviously hugely time consuming and really distracts you from the point of what is this telling me, and what action can I take to better inform the decisions we're going to make as a business to move us forward. So I think that's massive, that really we can focus on the results and not just on if we trust them or not. So talking another way in how data has changed the business that's a lot more recent for us. So, and it's kind of not a direct result of Looker for us, but it's more the work that we have done to bring Looker into the business has really had this added benefit. So we hired a data scientist in January, George, who's very good. One of the things that he found immediately in joining us was that he had this data warehouse that had all of the data that he would need to kickstart his data science projects, cleaned, structured, formatted, that was being used for Looker. And that data that we put all of that effort in the onboarding and the time since to verify, to check, to work with the business to ensure its accuracy, he could then make massive strides in a very short amount of time using that data for data science. So he wasn't having to spend a large amount of time processing data from different systems, manually packing it and slicing it and ensuring that it was correct and accurate. He had that as a start, and so then he could really focus on the insights that he could get from that data and on building and tuning his models. And that's been massively beneficial to us in beginning to look at data science for things like personalization, our product affinity and how people are styling our product and how they're purchasing it together. And we've got a lot of really key insights into that in a very short amount of time. And in some recent personalization tests we did, some of the models George built outperformed the baseline by 2,700%, which was fantastic. And those results were partly enabled by that data warehouse that we had built to support Looker as a tool in the business. So I'm just going to go into some specific use cases now around how various areas of the business have used Looker and are using Looker and the value it's added. So first of all, talking about our wholesale department, these are the people that deal with our large customers who are buying product in bulk, again, to sell through their own websites or in their own stores. Prior to Looker, there was a manual Excel process that ran overnight to give them a visibility of customer sales, deliveries, and all that kind of thing. This was an overnight process that actually took about anywhere between 15 and 16 hours to run. So, you know, you don't have to be brilliant at maths to figure out that they were getting the data very late in the day, and then they didn't have a whole lot of time to use it before it became out of date. When we bought in Looker, Redshift and Matillion, what we were able to do was to immediately give them more up-to-date access to that data so that they could have a better visibility of it, but also to give them a full history. So that manual Excel process, although it took a long time, it only gave them a very small snapshot, one selling season of data, which is about 6 months. When we put the data in Looker and in the cloud, we were able to give them a full 15-year history of all of the sales and able to give that to them in a much more up-to-date, timely manner. It also, using Looker, has allowed them to align their reporting across their different offices. So we have lots of global offices to support our wholesale customers, and Looker has enabled them to work from a standard set of reports. So as a customer service team, they're aligned and working from the same page. And it's also allowed the wholesale sales teams to align in a similar way. So again, we have wholesale sales agents who work across the globe, who have meetings with various different wholesale customers and clients, and they now have a standard set of reports for their sales meetings that will give them all the information they need about the particular client, about what we have available to sell, and also visibility of things like what is selling well cross-channel. So we can say to our wholesale customers, hey, this jacket is selling really well in the stores, maybe you'd like to buy some, and that's massive. And the final way is that it's allowed the automated distribution of a lot of reports to some of our franchise partners, which previously was a very manual and time-consuming exercise. So there's savings there. Moving on to our retail estate and our retail stores. So we have an automated distribution through Looker of bi-hourly reports that go to all of our own retail stores, so all 240 of them. This gives them a view in the day of what their current sales are looking like, how many people they've had in store, what the footfall's looking like, where they are performing against the budget, against their sales targets, and all sorts of comparisons for that. So they can see how they're doing. Are we up compared to last week? Are we up compared to last year? And obviously in the current climate of stores reopening after the lockdown that we've all experienced, that's been very useful just to give them that feel of how quickly are things returning to normal. And on top of those regular reports they're getting throughout the day, they are also receiving weekly reports that give them some kind of more higher level information around what's selling well in the store, what's not selling well in the store, and lots of metrics around, things that are selling in other stores and across other channels, and information on future deliveries they can expect into the store and what stock they can be expected to receive. And all of those are distributed to them via PDFs that land in the manager's mailbox and are then shared with the wider store team. And finally, just to complete the sales channel run through, e-commerce. So we have a lot of hourly reports for web sales in e-commerce that give visibility of, up to the last 20, 30 minutes, how are our sales on the web going today? How are we doing? And again, all of those like-for-like comparisons, and what are our best sellers? And those kind of reports are particularly of interest during our peak selling period. So on days like Black Friday, the Christmas sales, we can have really up-to-date visibility of how our sales are going. And also when we're pushing out marketing information and offers like that, we can see pretty quickly what kind of impact that's had on sales. Last Black Friday in our staff restaurant at work, we actually had that report broadcast on a massive wall, so everybody could see as we went through Black Friday, which is always our biggest selling day of the year, how we were selling, how we were doing against the target that we'd set for ourselves, and then also a visibility of what some of our top sellers in terms of product were on Black Friday. And that was really good because it really engaged everybody, and everybody was really keen on the number, because how much we sell on Black Friday is always a massive thing for us. We also have things like size availability reporting. So that gives the trading team for our website the visibility of, have we got enough product online, and have we got enough to sell? And then things like combining Google Analytics data with our order data that gives us a view of things like, how are our sales converting to our views, and how is that looking like across various sites and various product classes. So if we do have conversion issues that could indicate an issue with the site or with particular product pages, we can really drill into that pretty quickly and see what's going wrong and do something to fix it. So just to wrap up pretty quickly, so before Looker, we were really in the data dark ages. We had a lack of traceability. There was a lot of departmental siloed reporting and a real lack of alignment and real time-consuming, resource-heavy and manual processes that kind of really held us back from understanding where we were and taking action to improve. So bringing Looker in has allowed us to centralize a lot of that reporting, to really align across the business and understand exactly where we are and what we're doing, and share that information across multiple teams so everybody in various job roles can understand where we are and what we're doing. And the other thing it's allowed us to do as well is really to kickstart our data science projects, which is something we're really getting into and really looking to push forward over the next 12 to 18 months. I wouldn't say we're quite at Data-lightenment yet, but I think Looker has helped us get a lot closer to it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brad. As informative as always. I'd also like to thank Ben as well. We live and die by what our customers say, so we're really very appreciative that people take time to participate in events like this. So thanks very much once again. You've all been, or some of you have been diligent in supplying questions, which we have a list of. We've got a bit of time, so we'll take a few or try and answer some questions. The ones that we don't get around to, we'll answer offline. But the first question, and this is for Cab, the question is, do you see a trend of people wanting to know their customer on a more personal level?
Yeah, so the answer to that is absolutely yes, as you can imagine, right? This has been really accelerated with COVID, just because traditionally a big part of how retailers engage their customers and give personalized experiences is in-store, right? It's in-store that we have the highest conversion rates. It's in-store that direct experiences with the customer lead to highest upsell and so on. With COVID, that's not possible anymore. So building a digital relationship with the customer has become more important than ever. And it's impossible to do that without really understanding the customer at a personal level. So retailers have always wanted to know their customers at a personal level. There's nothing new there. But the need to get to do so digitally, and the need to get many different data sources around that customer has increased lately.
Okay, thanks, Cab. The next question is for Ben. And the question is, which data visualization tool or tools did you use before Looker, and how did you migrate from the old to the new and manage the potential difference in answers from the old and new tool? So there's a few questions in one there, Ben.
Good question. So before Looker, we were using Tableau. So we were getting data into Excel, and then usually we were connecting that to Tableau. Early on in our BigQuery journey, we kind of bridged that gap by connecting BigQuery directly to Tableau. But we just kind of fell. I can't speak for the tool, for the software now, because this was a few years ago, but at the time we weren't able to do things like real-time dashboarding, and it didn't really align with the kind of immediacy of data that we wanted to give to the business. So we moved away for Looker in terms of business acceptance. So because we'd done that piece to kind of connect Tableau to BigQuery, the data was the same, and we had kind of, as a team, we'd cleaned up reports and represented them. But I think something that helps adoption for us certainly is about showing people the extra value. So people are maybe less fussed about getting numbers to match exactly if you can show the value to moving the report. So for us, it was about saying, hey, look, that old report you had in the old world that would refresh once a week that you had to wait for us to do. Now you can have it in Looker. You can refresh it 5 times a day if you want, and you don't have to wait for us to provide it to you. So it's the added value that we got from moving away from the tool as well. But the data was coming from the same place, so we were able to keep the numbers the same.
Okay, thanks, Ben. I think we've got time for one more question, and this one's for Brad. And the question is, Brad, how often are business teams looking at new KPIs based on what they get from Looker? Is it something very dynamic, less or more, as the business and usage of Looker matures?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think in terms of KPIs, obviously there's a lot of the core ones that we kind of know. I'm not sure Looker has necessarily gave us a lot of new KPIs, but what it has given us is the ability to really have the visibility and the velocity in understanding how our KPIs are changing based on what we do. I would say, and this is probably a wider point that's just relevant to reporting in general, is that more KPIs isn't always better. Core ones that are actually telling you something about how you're doing. But I think for me, the way that Looker and that cloud reporting approach has really benefited us is helping us understand how our KPIs are changing based on what we're doing a lot quicker. So we can see if the action that we've taken as a business has really had the positive impact that we wanted to.
Okay, thank you for that, Brad. So we're nearly at time. Just a couple of final points from me. First of all, thank you all for attending. Thanks again to our guest speakers. Everyone who's registered will be receiving an email from us answering the questions that we've covered, plus the ones that we haven't got round to. Plus, because we're an ever-giving company, you will also get an invite to part 2 of this series. This is part 1. Part 2 is dedicated again to retail and e-commerce. It's the same time next week, so you'll receive a link in that email to register for the second part of this series of webinars. We hope you found this one valuable. We hope you all choose to attend the next one. And again, many thanks for attending, and we hope to see you all next week. Thanks again.